The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates, its translucent walls catching the light from 3 different suns. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in carefully arranged sections, each area designed to accommodate the unique environmental needs of its occupants. Some floated in spherical water tanks, others perched on heated stone platforms, and a few existed as pure energy contained within specialized force fields. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Lee Hanna, her simple black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garb worn by most other delegates. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, her posture straight and professional, even as the weight of history pressed down on her shoulders. Behind her, the small human delegation sat in uncomfortable silence, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of their entire species. The voting had taken 3 full days. Species after species had risen to explain their position on humanity's application for full membership in the Galactic Council. Some had been diplomatic in their rejection, citing concerns about human expansion rates or cultural compatibility. Others had been more direct in their condemnation. Now, as the final tallies appeared in holographic displays throughout the chamber, the result was clear and devastating. The Zealothi moderator, a tall, insectoid creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights like jewels, stood at the primary podium. Its voice came through the universal translation system with mechanical precision, though Hanna thought she detected a note of satisfaction that the technology couldn't quite filter out. The final vote on application 7749, submitted by the species known as Homo sapiens from the planet designated Earth, has been completed, the moderator announced. 847 votes against approval. 12 votes in favor. The motion for human membership in the Galactic Council is hereby rejected. Hanna felt something cold settle in her stomach, but her expression remained neutral. Around the chamber she could hear the sounds of approval from various species. The Keth delegation, massive bear-like creatures with metallic implants covering half their bodies, stamped their feet in a rhythm that shook the floor. The floating jellyfish-like ethereals pulsed with bright colors that their kind used to express satisfaction. The Keth ambassador rose to his full height of nearly 3 meters, his artificial voice synthesizer crackling as he spoke. The human species has demonstrated excessive aggression throughout their brief contact with galactic civilization. Their expansion patterns are unpredictable and often violent. Their military capabilities, while primitive by galactic standards, show concerning potential for destruction. They are fundamentally unsuited for membership in a civilized galactic society. Other delegates began to voice their agreement. The aquatic collective spoke of humanity's tendency to pollute their environments. The crystal communes complained about human mining operations disrupting their sacred geological formations. The hive mind expressed concerns about humanity's chaotic individualistic nature being incompatible with organized galactic society. Each criticism felt like a physical blow to Hanna, but she remained standing, listening to every word. These weren't just political rejections. They were judgments on everything humanity had tried to become since making contact with galactic civilization 15 years earlier. Every diplomatic effort, every cultural exchange, every attempt to prove that humans could be trusted partners in a larger cosmic community had just been dismissed. The worst part was that some of the criticisms weren't entirely unfair. Humanity did have a violent history. They had expanded rapidly once they developed faster-than-light travel. Their military technology development had proceeded faster than many species were comfortable with. But Hanna had hoped that humanity's potential contributions would outweigh their perceived dangers. When the final species finished speaking, silence fell over the chamber. The only sounds were the mechanical humming of life support systems and the quiet chittering of the insectoid delegates as they communicated among themselves. Hanna knew this was her moment. She stepped forward to the speaking platform, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Every eye, sensor, and optical array in the chamber focused on her. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation system. "I want to thank you for your consideration of humanity's application. We understand that this decision was not made lightly." She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Some appeared attentive, others seemed to be preparing to leave, already dismissing humanity as irrelevant to their future plans. "You have made your choice about humanity's place in your council," Hanna continued, her voice growing stronger. "Now humanity will make our choice about your galaxy." The chamber erupted in what could only be described as laughter, though it came in forms ranging from harmonic vibrations to rapid color changes to actual audible sounds from species with vocal cords. The human threat was clearly seen as nothing more than amusing bluster from a rejected species. The Zealothi moderator waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. The Council has additional business to address regarding this matter. Earth and all human colonies have 30 standard days to withdraw all presence from Council space. This includes military vessels, civilian ships, trading posts, and diplomatic missions. Compliance with this directive is not optional. Hannah felt the blood drain from her face, but she maintained her composure. This wasn't just rejection. This was exile from the entire galactic community. Humanity was being told to retreat to their home system and stay there. Understood, she replied simply. 30 days. She turned and walked toward the exit, her small delegation falling in behind her. As they reached the massive doors that led out of the chamber, she paused for just a moment, looking back at the assembled representatives who had just made what might prove to be the most significant decision in galactic history. The doors sealed behind them with a sound like thunder, final and absolute. The command center buried deep within Luna's rocky surface buzzed with quiet activity as dozens of technicians monitored screens showing the retreat of human forces from across the galaxy. Admiral Park Jin-woo stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the holographic display that showed their entire civilization pulling back like a tide retreating from the shore. Red markers blinked out one by one as human ships departed from Council space. Each disappearing light represented hundreds of people, entire communities that had been built over 15 years of galactic expansion. Mining colonies that had been carving resources from asteroid belts. Trading posts that had become meeting places for dozens of different species. Research stations where human scientists had worked alongside alien colleagues to push the boundaries of knowledge. All of it was being abandoned because the Galactic Council had decided humanity was too dangerous to be trusted. Commander Kim Minji approached from across the busy command floor, her boots clicking softly on the metal deck plating. She carried a data tablet filled with the endless stream of reports coming in from across human space. Her face showed the strain of coordinating the largest evacuation in human history, but her voice remained steady and professional. "Sir, the latest status report," she said, offering him the tablet. "All civilian evacuations are proceeding exactly on schedule. The agricultural colonies in the Kepler sector finished their withdrawal 6 hours ago. The mining operations in the Outer Rim completed their pullback this morning." Jinwoo took the tablet and scrolled through the numbers. Millions of people, thousands of ships, entire industrial complexes being packed up and moved. To anyone watching from outside, it looked like humanity was simply obeying the Council's orders like obedient children who had been scolded by their parents. "What about the industrial operations?" he asked. "Deep space mining output has increased by 300% over the past month," Minji reported. "The automated mining platforms are pulling raw materials faster than ever before. The shipyards at Titan are running constant shifts, and the Europa facilities just brought their new construction bays online." Jinwoo nodded. While the galaxy watched human civilian populations retreat, they weren't paying attention to what those same humans were doing in their home system. Every piece of equipment brought back from the colonies was being put to work. Every returning worker was being assigned to projects that had been waiting in secret for years. "And Project Gateway?" Jinwoo asked, his voice dropping to a quieter tone even though everyone in the command center had the highest security clearance. "Dr. Choi Juno sent his final report 20 minutes ago," Minji replied, consulting her tablet again. "Successful stabilization of artificial wormhole generation technology. The test runs have been perfect. We can deploy fleet assets anywhere in the galaxy within hours, completely bypassing normal hyperspace travel routes. This was the piece that made everything else possible. For 5 years, ever since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, a small team of brilliant scientists had been working on theoretical physics that most of the galaxy believed was impossible. While alien species had mastered hyperspace travel thousands of years ago, they had never imagined that space itself could be folded and twisted to create instant pathways across any distance. Dr. Choi had started with human theories about wormholes and quantum mechanics, then added insights gained from studying alien technology. The result was something that no other species in the galaxy possessed or even knew was possible. It was humanity's secret advantage, developed in hidden laboratories while diplomats smiled and shook hands with alien ambassadors. Jinwoo remembered the day 5 years ago when he had first been briefed on the possibility of council rejection. The politicians had been optimistic, believing that humanity's technological contributions and peaceful intentions would be enough to earn acceptance. But military leaders like Jinwoo had learned not to trust in optimism alone. Sir, Minji continued, there's something else. Intelligence reports suggest that several council species are already making plans to claim former human territories. The Keth hegemony has filed preliminary mining rights for 3 of our former asteroid colonies. The Zelathi Commerce Guild is requesting trade route reassignments through sectors we used to patrol. Jinwoo's jaw tightened. The council hadn't just rejected humanity. They were already dividing up the spoils like vultures picking over a carcass. They thought humans were simply going to retreat to Earth and never bother them again. They had no idea what was actually happening. Begin Phase 2, Jinwoo ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Full withdrawal from all council space, but maintain our deep reconnaissance networks. I want to know about every ship movement, every economic transaction, every political whisper that happens in council territory. Around the command center, officers began implementing orders that had been planned years in advance. Human spy satellites that looked like space debris would remain in orbit around key worlds. Communication intercepts that the council had never detected would continue monitoring their transmissions. Sleeper agents among the alien populations would keep reporting back to Earth. The galaxy thought humanity was leaving, but human eyes and ears would remain everywhere. On the main viewing screen, the last human transport ship engaged its hyperspace drive and disappeared from the edge of council space. To any alien observer, this marked the end of humanity's presence in galactic civilization. Jinwoo knew better. This was just the end of the beginning. The galaxy had rejected humanity for being too dangerous. Now they were about to learn what human danger actually looked like when it was no longer restrained by the desire for acceptance and approval. The gun was loaded and soon it would be time to pull the trigger. The administrative offices of the Galactic Council occupied an entire level of the massive space station orbiting Nexus Prime. The corridors were usually filled with the quiet hum of efficient bureaucracy, but today Council Administrator Veltar noticed an unusual tension in the air. His staff moved with hurried steps, their multiple arms juggling data pads and communication devices as reports flooded in from across council space. Veltar settled into his specialized chair, designed to accommodate his reptilian physiology, and activated the holographic display that dominated his office. The three-dimensional map of council territory flickered to life, but instead of the usual peaceful blue indicators showing normal trade and patrol activities, angry red warning symbols dotted the display like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. His primary aide, a nervous aquatic named Blix who worked from a mobile water tank, approached with obvious reluctance. The being's tentacles writhed in patterns that Veltar had learned to recognize as extreme anxiety. Administrator, the morning reports are compiled, Blix gurgled through the translation system. The situation has deteriorated significantly since yesterday. Veltar's mandibles clicked involuntarily, a nervous habit he had never been able to break. Show me the numbers. The holographic display shifted to show statistical data that made Veltar's cold blood feel even colder. Pirate attacks in formerly human-patrolled sectors had increased by 700% in just 3 months. The lucrative trade route through the Kepler arm, which had generated enormous profits for the Council's member species, was now effectively closed to commercial traffic. 17 freighters lost this week alone, Blix reported, his tentacles curling with distress. The insurance companies are refusing to cover shipments through any sector that was previously under human protection. Veltar studied the data more closely. The pattern was unmistakable. Every sector where human ships had once provided security was now experiencing unprecedented levels of criminal activity. It was as if the pirates had been waiting for the humans to leave before emerging from whatever hiding places they had used for years. What about our own patrol ships? Veltar asked. The Council voted to redistribute security responsibilities among member species. Blix's color shifted to a darker shade of blue, indicating embarrassment. The Keth hegemony reports that their patrol vessels are insufficient for the task. The Zelathi Commerce Guild has requested additional support. The Crystal Communes say their ships are designed for exploration, not combat. The truth was becoming painfully clear. The human merchant marine and patrol fleets hadn't just been providing security services out of goodwill or diplomatic courtesy. They had been the backbone of galactic commerce protection, and their absence had created a vacuum that criminal elements were rushing to fill. There's more, Administrator, Blix continued reluctantly. The Keth hegemony has lost contact with 3 of their border colonies. Long-range sensor scans show no signs of life, but there's no evidence of conventional weapons damage. Veltar's head snapped up sharply. Entire colonies? How is that possible? Unknown. The colonies simply went dark over the past 2 weeks. When Keth patrol ships arrived to investigate, they found abandoned settlements with no indication of what happened to the populations. This was far beyond the capabilities of ordinary pirates or raiders. Veltar had seen pirate attacks before. They were typically quick strikes against shipping or poorly defended outposts, focused on grabbing valuable cargo and escaping before military forces could respond. Pirates didn't have the resources or organization to eliminate entire colonial populations without leaving traces. What about the human surveillance networks we were monitoring? Veltar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Completely gone, Blix confirmed. Our intelligence division reports no detectable human presence anywhere in Council space. Their withdrawal appears to have been total and complete. That should have been good news. That should have been exactly what the Council had wanted when they voted to expel humanity from galactic civilization. But Veltar felt a growing sense of unease that had nothing to do with the immediate crisis reports covering his desk. In his long career as a Council administrator, he had learned to recognize certain patterns in galactic politics and conflict. When dangerous species went completely silent and invisible, it usually meant they were planning something. The most successful predators were the ones that struck from positions where their prey couldn't see them coming. The communication array in his office chimed with an urgent priority message from the Outer Rim territories. Veltar activated the transmission and found himself looking at the battered bridge of a Zelethi cargo vessel. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across the captain's insectoid features, and Veltar could see hull breaches visible through the viewports behind him. "This is Captain Zixtal of the merchant vessel Far Trader," the Zelethi announced, his voice shaking with exhaustion and fear. "We're broadcasting an emergency report to all Council authorities." "Report your status, Captain," Veltar replied. "We were attacked 6 hours ago while transiting the Proxima shipping lane. Unknown vessels emerged from what appeared to be some kind of spatial distortion. Ships unlike anything in our databases. They disabled our engines and weapons systems, then boarded us and took our entire cargo hold." Veltar leaned forward in his chair. This was the first detailed account he had received of the mysterious attacks that were plaguing former human patrol zones. "Did you get sensor readings on the attacking vessels?" Veltar asked. "Negative. They used some kind of jamming technology that interfered with our sensors. But before they departed, they left something behind." The captain's voice wavered with uncertainty. "They deployed a message beacon that began broadcasting on all frequencies." "What was the message?" "That's the strange part, Administrator. It wasn't really a message at all. Just a set of coordinates and a timestamp, broadcast in human standard language." Veltar felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. "Human standard?" "Confirmed. The coordinates corresponded to our exact position, and the timestamp matched the moment of their attack. Nothing else. No demands, no threats, no explanation." After ending the transmission, Veltar sat in silence for several minutes while Blix waited nervously nearby. Similar reports had been filtering in from across Council space over the past weeks. Always the same pattern. Mysterious attackers using unknown technology. Always leaving behind coordinates and timestamps broadcast in the language of the species that the Council had recently expelled from galactic civilization. The humans weren't gone. They were making a point. The bridge of the New Soul existed in a place that should have been impossible according to every law of physics known to galactic science. The massive warship hung suspended between normal space and hyperspace, its hull flickering in and out of visible reality as wormhole manipulation technology kept it anchored in both dimensions simultaneously. From this impossible position, Admiral Park Jinwoo could broadcast to every corner of the galaxy while remaining completely untouchable by any weapon system the Council possessed. Jinwoo stood before the primary communication array, his uniform crisp and his expression calm despite the magnitude of what he was about to unleash. Behind him, the bridge crew worked at stations displaying tactical information that would have terrified any Council military analyst. 73 different human strike fleets were positioned throughout Council space, each one hidden in folded space until the moment they received orders to attack. The transmission began at exactly 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Every major communication network in Council space carried the same signal simultaneously. Emergency broadcasts interrupted regular programming on thousands of worlds. Military command centers found their secure channels hijacked by the mysterious transmission. Even private communication devices received the signal, ensuring that every sentient being in the galaxy would witness what came next. Jinwoo's image appeared on screens throughout Council territory with crystal clarity that seemed impossible given his theoretical location outside normal space. His voice carried through translation systems in hundreds of languages and communication methods used by different species. Citizens of the galaxy, he began, his tone conversational despite the historic nature of his words. 6 months ago, your Galactic Council voted to expel humanity from galactic civilization. Your representatives declared us too dangerous, too unpredictable, and too violent for membership in your peaceful society. On worlds throughout Council space, beings stopped their daily activities to listen. In the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were called as administrators tried to understand how humans had penetrated their most secure communication networks. Military commanders scrambled to locate the source of the transmission while their technicians reported that it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Your council was correct about one thing, Jinwoo continued, his calm demeanor more unsettling than any angry threat could have been. Humanity is dangerous. Behind him on the bridge, tactical displays showed the real-time positions of human forces that had been invisible until this moment. Each red dot represented a strike fleet positioned at critical infrastructure points throughout the galaxy. Banking centers, military installations, communication hubs, and trade route control stations all had human ships waiting in folded space nearby. 4 months, you have watched your trade routes become hunting grounds for pirates. You have seen your colonies go dark without explanation. You have found mysterious messages left at attack sites, all written in human standard language. You convinced yourselves that these were isolated incidents, random criminal activities that had nothing to do with the species you expelled from your civilization. Jinwoo paused, allowing his words to sink in across thousands of worlds where beings were beginning to understand the true scope of what they were witnessing. You were wrong. Every attack, every missing colony, every disrupted trade route has been a demonstration of human capabilities. We wanted you to understand exactly what you rejected when you voted against our membership in your council. At precisely that moment, the coordinated assault began across the entire galaxy. Captain Yoon Dae-hoon led the first strike against the Zealoty financial hub at Proxima 7. His squadron of 12 ships materialized inside the station's defensive perimeter through artificially generated wormholes that bypassed every security system the Zealoty had installed. The massive trading complex, which processed financial transactions for half the galaxy, suddenly found itself facing human warships that had appeared from thin air. The attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. Dae-hoon's forces used quantum phase technology to walk through the station's shields as if they didn't exist. They disabled every computer system in the complex using electromagnetic pulse weapons that left the hardware intact but wiped all data storage systems clean. When Zealoty security forces tried to respond, they found their weapons couldn't lock onto ships that existed partially outside normal space. Before departing through the same impossible wormholes they had used to arrive, the human ships left behind a single message beacon broadcasting in multiple languages. Economic warfare is still warfare. You chose to make this economic when you expelled us from galactic trade. Simultaneously, Commander Seo Haeung was coordinating attacks on 47 different military installations across Council space. Her tactical network used artificial intelligence systems that could predict enemy movements before the enemy commanders had even finished thinking of them. Human ships appeared at each target location with perfect timing, struck with surgical precision, and vanished before effective countermeasures could be deployed. At the Keth Military Academy on Rigel Prime, human forces materialized in the middle of their War Games exercise. The Academy's most advanced students and instructors watched in stunned silence as human ships demonstrated tactical maneuvers that made their entire military doctrine obsolete. Adaptive shielding systems absorbed energy weapon attacks and redirected the energy back at the attackers. Predictive targeting systems fired at locations where enemy ships would be rather than where they currently were. The message was clear. Everything the Council military thought it knew about space combat was outdated by decades. Within 72 hours of Jinwoo's broadcast, the galactic economy had ground to a complete halt. Banking systems were offline. Military communication networks had crashed. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries became hunting grounds for human ships that could appear and disappear at will. The Council had rejected humanity for being too dangerous for their peaceful civilization. Now every being in the galaxy was learning what human danger actually looked like when it was no longer restrained by the desire for diplomatic acceptance. The war had begun and humanity held every advantage. The diplomatic shuttle approached the human vessel through a corridor of twisted space that made Zealoty Ambassador Karthek's compound eyes water with strain. The ship she was approaching existed in a state that her species science had declared impossible, floating simultaneously in normal space and hyperspace through technology that defied every principle of physics she had learned in her long career. 8 months had passed since the Galactic Council voted to expel humanity from galactic civilization. 8 months since Ambassador Lee Hanna had walked out of the council chambers after humanity's crushing rejection. Now Karthek found herself traveling to meet the same woman, but the circumstances had changed so dramatically that it felt like entering a completely different universe. The human ship Unity was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest council vessels, its hull incorporating design elements that suggested technology far beyond what the galaxy had believed humans possessed. As Karthek's shuttle docked with the ship, she noticed that the docking bay itself seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing her shuttle to connect with solid matter that occasionally flickered in and out of visible reality. The escort that met her was composed of both humans and aliens working together, something that would have been unthinkable under the old council system where species rarely cooperated on such intimate levels. Her guide, a young human officer named Lieutenant Park, led her through corridors where she saw representatives of dozens of different species working side by side with human crew members. The conference room where the negotiations would take place was surprisingly simple, decorated with art from various worlds and furnished with adaptive seating that could accommodate the physical needs of multiple species. Waiting for her were the 2 humans who had become the most feared and respected individuals in the galaxy over the past 8 months. Admiral Park Jin-woo sat with the same calm confidence he had displayed during his historic broadcast that had announced humanity's return to galactic affairs. Beside him sat Ambassador Lee Hanna, the woman who had endured the humiliation of humanity's rejection by the Council and had somehow transformed that defeat into the foundation for a new galactic order. Karthek settled into her specialized chair and activated her personal translation system. The weight of representing what remained of Council authority pressed heavily on her shoulders. The economic collapse that had followed humanity's coordinated strikes had left most Council species desperate for any solution that might restore stability to their worlds. "Your terms?" she asked, her translator struggling to convert her species' complex harmonic language into human speech patterns. Hanna reached across the table and placed a small data crystal in front of Karthek. The device contained thousands of pages of legal documents, constitutional frameworks, and organizational structures that had clearly been developed over years of careful planning. "Complete dissolution of the current Galactic Council structure," Hanna said, her voice carrying the same diplomatic professionalism that Karthek remembered from their first meeting 8 months earlier. "Establishment of a new galactic federation based on merit, technological contribution, and mutual cooperation rather than species politics and historical power structures." Karthek inserted the crystal into her reading device and began reviewing the proposed charter. She had expected to find a document of conquest, terms that would establish humanity as the dominant species ruling over defeated enemies. Instead, she found something far more sophisticated and, in many ways, more threatening to the old order. "Impossible," she said after scanning the initial sections. "The member species will never agree to abandon the council system that has maintained galactic stability for thousands of years." Jinwoo's response came with the matter-of-fact tone of someone stating obvious facts rather than making threats. "The member species no longer have functioning economies. Their military forces have been neutralized through demonstration of superior technology. Their communication networks operate only because we allow them to continue functioning. The old order has already ended. We are offering the opportunity to build something better in its place." Karthek continued reading through the proposed Federation Charter, expecting to find hidden clauses that would grant humanity special privileges or authority over other species. To her surprise, the document was remarkably fair in its treatment of all potential member species. Representation in the Federation government was based on measurable contributions to galactic welfare, technological innovation, peaceful development projects, educational advancement, and cooperative diplomatic engagement. Humanity claimed no special status beyond what they had earned through capability and achievement. The document even included provisions for species that had opposed human membership in the original council to earn equal representation through positive contributions to the new federation. "Why?" Karthek asked, looking up from the crystal reader to study the faces of the 2 humans across from her. "You have demonstrated overwhelming military superiority. You could rule the galaxy through force if you chose to do so." For the first time since Karthek had known her, Hanna smiled with genuine warmth rather than diplomatic politeness. "Rule implies dominance over unwilling subjects. That is not what humanity wants from our relationship with the galaxy. We prefer to lead through inspiration and example. The galaxy needs protectors, innovators and builders working together toward common goals. It does not need rulers imposing their will on others. Karthek looked through the viewports that lined one wall of the conference room. Outside, she could see human ships emerging from artificially generated wormholes around dozens of different worlds. But instead of military formations preparing for conquest, she saw construction vessels and supply ships working alongside vessels from other species to rebuild the infrastructure that had been damaged during the economic collapse. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had voted against Earth's membership in the Council were now actively requesting to join humanity's federation. The Aquatic Collective had already signed preliminary agreements. The Crystal Communes were negotiating cooperative mining arrangements that would benefit both species. Even some of the more aggressive species were exploring how they could contribute to the new order. 6 months later, Captain Lee Miho stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship Unity, watching the daily operations of what had become the most successful interspecies cooperation project in galactic history. The bridge crew included humans, Zealothi, Keth, aquatics, and representatives of a dozen other species working together with an efficiency that the old council had never achieved. The old council chambers on Nexus Prime had been converted into a museum, preserving the history of galactic civilization while acknowledging the failures that had led to its transformation. The new Federation Assembly met in a station that had been built cooperatively by 17 different species, each contributing their unique strengths to create something greater than any single species could have achieved alone. In his personal log, Captain Miho wrote the final assessment of humanity's journey from rejection to leadership. The Council's greatest mistake was not underestimating humanity's military capability or our technological potential. Their greatest mistake was underestimating our ability to transform rejection into the foundation for something far better than acceptance into their flawed system ever could have provided.